So this is another part of section 3.1. Depending on your instructor, you may or may not have a question like this. So it's one where you're given four of the scores, 4 out of 5 scores, and the average, and you have to find the missing score. So it's a bowling tournament. He's bowling 5 games each day, writing down the score of the games. And so he finds that one of the numbers has accidentally been erased, but he has the other 4 scores and the average that he already calculated. And so we're supposed to find the missing score. Now, with this situation, there's not a way to do it using the calculator shortcut for finding the mean. So you have to go back to the actual equation for finding the mean. And this is that equation in this case because there are 5 scores. To get the mean, as a reminder, it's the same as the average. You're going to add score 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 together and divide them all by 5. But in this case, score 5 is what's missing. Normally you'd be plugging all the numbers in here and divided by 5 because you're usually asked to calculate the mean. In this case, you have the mean and you have 4 of the 5 scores, and you have to solve for the missing score. So you'd still use that same equation, and then you will plug in the numbers that you have for scores 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for the mean. So the mean is 250, and score 1 is 270, score 2, 245, score 3 is 241, score 4 is 275, score 5 is what we're solving for, and then it would be divided by 5 that you don't need to change. And so the first thing we're going to do is add up all the numbers. Oh, still have an S in there. It's not supposed to be there. We're going to add up these numbers that we know, and that gives us 1031. And then the next step is we need to isolate this 5, the score 5. The first thing we need to do is get rid of this 5 in the denominator. So to do that, we're going to multiply the left by 5 and multiply the right by 5. So I've done that here. So then the times 5 on the right is going to cancel with the 5 in the denominator, and the times 5 on the left, we're going to be multiplying that by 250. The reason that you need to do that is because we need to get rid of this 5 in the denominator. So to do that, we multiply by 5, but in algebra, anything you do on one side of the equal sign, you have to do the same thing to the other side of the equal sign. So there, this 5 and this 5 are going to cancel, and I'm just going to probably isn't going to show very well, but now there's lines through that times 5 and this times 5, and that's because we've got one that we're dividing and one that we're multiplying, so those cancel with each other. This one stays the same, and then we're going to do this algebra, or this math over here, the 5 times 250. And that gives us 1,250, and since the 5 on top and the 5 on the bottom canceled, they've both gone away. So now we've got it simplified to 1,250 equals 1031 plus score 5. So now we're much closer to being able to isolate score 5. The only thing left to do now is to subtract 1031 to get rid of that, to have score 5 by itself. And if we subtract it from this side, then we also have to subtract it from the other side of the equal sign. So when we do that, it looks like this. Starts to look a little more complicated before it gets easier. So then we've got 1250 minus 1031. So here's the minus 1031 on both sides. And the 1031 minus 1031, all of that is going to cancel. So I'm going to just draw a line through that. And so that means that 1250 minus 1031 is equal to score 5. So then it's just a matter of putting 1250 minus 1031 into the calculator, and it gives you 219. So this is not truly statistics other than it involves finding the mean. The majority of what's happening here is all algebra. It's rearranging an equation to solve for the unknown. So depending on how recently you've taken algebra or how comfortable you ever were with it, this might either be just really intuitive to you or not at all. And there's not going to be a lot of this kind of rearranging equations in this class. So overall, I would say definitely practice doing it. If you have it as a homework problem, it's likely to show up on a quiz or a test. So just make sure that you're very comfortable with doing it for this exact equation and how to solve for the missing score in there. And chances are, if you get another one like it, it's still going to be with 5 scores, and it's still going to be the one missing score. The only thing I would think that would change in it are the actual numbers that you're given for the 4 scores and the mean. But if you would get another one like this, if it, say, had 6 scores, you'd add up all 6 scores and divide by 6 instead of 5. Or if it had 3 scores, you'd add up the 3 scores and divide by 3. And you'll always be given all but one of the scores. So if it was a situation where there were 3 total scores, you'd have 2 of them and you'd be solving for the third one. So those are the only variants on this that you would expect to see. I do think it's most likely that if you see one like this, it's going to be also with 5 scores.